people take these kind of changing markets and then just completely shoot up.
When they say that rising tide lifts all ships, man, does it ever. If you want to be successful, you have to develop the number of offers that goes beyond their reference points. But if they're focused on miss the one, the pay too much becomes really blurry.
What's the number where if you heard it went for that, you would still be like, oh, I would have paid that?
Don't look for a finish line. Find a win.
I would expect eventually exactly how it is in Ontario or Canada wide will change somehow. Everything's ready, and then you hit it and you come out the like you want to be organized and ready to go.
Hmm.
Is like so much of that is just being comfortable with uncomfortableness.
It's a really quick way to snap open the pickle jar. Welcome to the Leads Are Shit. This is a real estate magazine podcast, and I'm here with the owner of Just Sell Magazine, Andrew Fotiato, also the founder of Just Sell Homes, which is a real estate company or a real estate marketing company for real estate agents that want to just sell homes. My name is Taylor. I am a team leader in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I've been a realtor for like 13 years and I'm a nerd. So I go all over North America and talk to other realtors about how they practice real estate, best practices, and we mainly try to hit it out of the park. And Andrew spend we talk every week. We did this before the podcast. We'll probably do this after the podcast. But
Wait, there's an
to
after the
talk about
podcast?
what we like to talk about with you guys is where sales and marketing meet. That's such a pain point in real estate. It's such a big topic, and we've been digging into it.
Oh,
So,
it
what's
looks
on
like
your mind?
everyone's AI's just joined. I was like, all of a sudden, we just had like 15 people jump up in the number of people live. I was like, oh, that's the timing on all the Firefly note takers. So Firefly and Otter AI, the two most popular, it seems. But Otter seems to be number one.
And I have to say, some people are so worried about missing an episode that they've sent
Yeah,
multiple. Like Nico, we've
yeah,
got your AI twice. You're going to get
yeah,
duplicates of this.
yeah. You're
Yeah,
gonna get
that's very
lots of
good.
great notes.
But
Yeah,
if
but
you
it
are
is.
here for real, you can actually comment right in the chat. We are always watching the chat as we're going through
Yeah,
this. We address stuff that comes up in the chat, and you can tell people where you're from because their next seller might be moving to your neighborhood.
yeah, exactly. So say hi. You can set it if you're shy, set it to hosts and panelists, message us that only so Taylor and I see it. But I mean, hit it to everyone. You might as well. More fun that way. But yeah, so Taylor, we got to chat. What do you want to chat about?
Well, there's a bunch of things that are kind of going on.
Yeah.
Really, over the last couple of weeks, my market has been picking up, and in so many markets across North America, they felt like they haven't had the spring boost that they were looking for,
Yeah.
right? And this is kind of gives me some, it takes me way back, right? One of my darkest experiences in real estate was right after I had done some big wins. So, like 2013 and 2014 were my entrance to real estate, but then in 2015, the leading indicator of my market here in Edmonton, Alberta, which is oil, went from pretty much a record high to a record low in a few months.
No.
And it was wild. I was so afraid that I sold 60 houses in 6 months.
It's a
Right.
good six
And
months though.
that's because I was terrified. I was just like, the sky is falling. Uh, and
Well,
I felt like everything that real estate had given me up till that point, they were about to take away.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when you talk to people from all over North America, and this is less of a timing thing in Canada than it was in the US, is how many people in 2008 went from like the top to like almost out of the industry, and then how many people went from like nobody to the top. Like it was like a 1 year, 1 to 2 year stretch with just like a huge reorganization of where like I was talking to a team leader who does a lot of it, like number one in a big city. And they went from just like your average age in the area to number one since then.
Hmm.
Like it's pretty interesting to watch how like people take these kind of changing markets and then just completely shoot up. I love seeing that. But a lot of times it's just because it's changing. Like there's one where it's like they just find little loopholes in a marketing system where like people weren't looking before that's opened up now.
Hmm.
And they're like, oh, this came about. I'm gonna go hard on that. And then they just find every little thing they can and go hard on it.
Yeah, I find that each market is almost like different weather conditions,
Yeah.
and it will make some people look better, almost like appear better than they are.
Yeah.
But it's almost like your ships at sea, and some ships are better set up when there's more wind. Like you can get a bigger ship to move really quick.
Yeah.
But if you're paddling when there's no wind, you're still cool. You know, you're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's go. But when there's wind, you're like, geez, these other ships are kicking me.
Yeah.
They're so I've seen that on both sides. So one, when we take a look at those markets that had just searing heat during the pandemic, Toronto,
Yeah.
Vancouver, and all the suburbs surrounding them, because people were moving to lower density and it created action everywhere.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when we take a look at that and how that affected the teams that I have contact with, it made lightweight teams look awesome.
Yeah.
Like when they say that rising tide lifts all ships, man, does it ever. It just, they still had problems, like
Yeah, of
putting in a
course.
lot of offers and things like that. But the frequency of opportunity was what made people wealthy. Well,
Oh,
maybe
it
not
was
wealthy. Let's say rich.
if they kept it and had margins and spent
That's
it
why.
well.
That's
Like get
why.
into that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
real estate
it's
rich. Today,
like
tomorrow.
yes, it was great for a lot of Toronto agents, prices going up, but man, like the demoralizing side for some where it's like I've been in 30 offer nights with one client and keep losing. Like the emotional toll that can take and the exhaustion of it. And man, it's a whole different set of challenges than
But
yeah,
adaptation is a beautiful thing.
yeah,
So I remember going to Toronto and talking to groups of team leaders about how to keep focus on the most important stuff, which is reducing the number of offers a buyer makes before they acclimate to the market.
yeah,
Because if you are making 8 to 10 offers, you're actually working against your own interest. It's way harder to buy the eighth or 10th house. They're way more expensive than the first couple you guys had shots at, and your resources haven't changed.
yeah,
So to help people acclimate to the market is our highest function. When people come in, they're always like, "Hey, man, I want to buy something at champagne level for a beer price, and do it." Or you're not a great realtor. And it's like, no, I am a great realtor. That's why I want to tell you, if I could do that, I'd never do it for you because I just keep doing it for me, right? Like I wouldn't work for the public ever again.
Did
So
you have you had enough bidding wars in your area yet to establish the like how far above asking price you need to go based on the number of offers to get it?
Kind of, but
Yeah,
so it's almost like I don't look at it the same way. I know that
yeah,
realtors look at it that way, but I'm playing off of that. So
yeah.
this is what looking or being 2 steps ahead looks like.
Mhm.
If you want to be successful, you have to develop the number of offers that goes beyond their reference points. So right now, the average agent in my marketplace, they know what's up when there are 2 offers on one house. They know what's up when there are 4 offers on one house. When there's 6 offers on one house, you can tell them that like it's almost like when you're using Chat GPT that the system starts to hallucinate.
Yeah,
Right now in my market, if you talk to a 30-year agent, they will say the most offers they've ever seen is like 12 or 14. And they've only seen that maybe once, but they've seen 5 quite a few times. When you see that 13% of agents have been in business for more than 5 years, most of the agents in my marketplace have never been in a significant sellers market, and they don't go to other markets to train, and they're not coached.
yeah.
So for me, I've been to the hottest places in the world and talked to the top agents in those markets. So that's why we're able to do things that are crazy, like 57 offers on one house,
Yeah. No,
195 viewings on opening weekend. But that's because we know that if I take them out of their reference points and get buyers so focused on missing the one, don't miss the one, don't miss the one. And then way back here is that thought, the other thing they're worried about, pay too much. But if they're focused on miss the one, the pay too much becomes really blurry.
oh yeah, the amount of times you hear it's like the easiest objection handler for raising a bid was, what's the number? Where if you heard it went for that, you would still be like, oh, I would have paid that.
And human nature. I remember
Yeah.
actually one of our guests here, Andy, was like, "Hey, where do you find somebody to buy a $40 million house?" He said, "It's easy. Find somebody who can't buy a $50 million house." Like that's human
Simple.
nature
Yeah.
when they're in competition that they want to win. So we've really been working with that and helping, like trying to understand that because if we want our families that we serve to do well, we have to develop a war chest for their purchase.
Yeah.
And we have to do that by extracting every dollar from their sale and then lining it up and having good strategy. So right now, I can tell you that in the Edmonton market, nobody knows how to write a bully offer.
Are you
And
doing
many
any?
agents don't know how to hold for offers. So you see a lot of like one and dones, like day zero, the property's off the market. They're like, "What do you
Yeah.
mean? What are you talking about? We found a finish line." Don't look for a finish line. Find a win. You need a
Yeah.
win, savages.
And I know when you came to Toronto and you interviewed all the people here about like how they handle these side of things, did they talk with you about maybe differences in their marketing overall in those markets too?
Absolutely. Because when you take a look at how you market for a fast market, it's not a
Yeah.
marathon, it's a sprint. So the game is all on pre-marketing. Like where you're going to get the best results in that in offer day after opening weekend is based on how many people know about it before it hits the MLS system.
Yeah.
So if you can, right now, what we do is we make that thousands of people and over 100 agents that know about it. Like I think actually we're bordering on 200 agents now that would know about it before it actually comes to MLS.
Yeah, I noticed during like in Toronto especially, and then a few other markets started copying that. The private agent Facebook groups for an area started exploding in popularity. So did brokerage Facebook groups because their brokerage people weren't reading their brokerage's emails. Um, but like those in hot markets became way more popular. And especially
Mm,
like secret Facebook groups where it was like invite only, they couldn't be searched. And you invite the kind of agents you like working with, and then people were sharing the list. And it became a very interesting thing to see of how popular that became, of like how important your agent being part of like the in crowd essentially, which is really code
yeah.
for this is an easy agent to work with.
So
That's how
now
you found
let's go
more.
to the juxtaposition of that because that might happen to be my reality, but I
Yeah.
imagine it's not the reality for many agents. So when I take a look at how I played the other side of the coin, when
Yeah.
we got into markets where they were buyer centric, we
Yeah.
started to change everything from like the ground up. So we didn't want listings, we wanted sellable listings.
Yeah.
You don't in a strong market, you still want sellable listings, but sellable is like silent. I want sellable listings,
Yeah.
you know. And then in a buyer's market, it's very loud. I want sellable listings because not
Yeah.
everything sells. In fact, one out of two didn't sell in my market for years. If
Yeah.
you looked at the general market, if you looked at the condo market, it was like one out of four that sold. Sometimes it was one out of 11. So I've seen some shit, right? Like I've
Yeah.
been in a market that was one of the toughest, but during that time, I still scored in the top 1% in the world for my brand
Yeah.
against hot markets. And the way that we did it is that we looked at buyers with real needs. So buyers often they're buying for things that are not about the money. They need another bedroom. They need to live closer to work. This is solving other parts of their life. So making a system to filter for that group and then doing what we do as agents. So our job is to acclimate people to the market and help them determine the best juice for squeeze without having to accumulate the same amount of hours in that we do.
Yeah.
And so we just brought them in looking for that. And then we had buyers that would help us sell more properties. And then on the listing side, it was like, really, okay, yes, you want to list your house, but do you want to do it bad enough to sell it for what you need to sell it for in this market? There's some reasons where can become a good thing. One of the things that we effectively packaged into our market was if you're buying more than you are selling, you are a buyer in a buyer's market. So let's take a little beating on that property that you've got to sell. It's still going to suck.
Yeah.
But then we're going to go up market and we're going to lay a ground pounding on the thing you want to buy, and you are going to be net positive. And that was a message that we could take into where people were, which was afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, Suzanne has a comment here in the chat, which is in Ontario can only market except for a brokerage for a maximum of 3 days before it must be done less. So that's actually Canada-wide. So clear cooperation in the US, they have it too, although the US just had some interesting exemptions and they're having some. Have you heard about the drama in the US that they're having with the clear co-op?
I'm always tuned into the drama in MLS.
So
I
entertaining.
talk to a lot of
So
American
yeah,
agents.
so in the US, essentially to oversimplify it, there are now like you don't have to like you put on MLS, but it doesn't have to get pushed out to like the portals like Zillow or like you can choose not to have it go to the public side essentially of where the MLS feeds. And so companies like Zillow are now saying, well, if you don't, we're never putting it on our property unless they change agents. So they're trying to strong arm and get people on. So it's
So
super interesting to
spicy.
watch. And normally, like they've had clear co-op well before Canada did, and I know that it's being challenged here. And so I would expect eventually exactly how it is in Ontario or Canada wide will change somehow. I would bet eventually. Um, but what that looks like between that, the commission lawsuit, like it wouldn't surprise me in the next couple of years if they also got rid of co-op commission as of the U in the MLS.
Very likely they will.
Yeah.
But to turn back to what Suzanne was talking about with like that 3-day rule,
Yeah, you just gotta be really tight in your
what
marketing.
do you do with those 3 days? And also, when we talk about we can only market, are you talking about public marketing? Or are you saying that can you email somebody and say, I have this property coming that's signed?
So it's
Because the other thing
officially
that we
one
work
to one.
around.
So this is
Yeah.
where like to me it's a little like dumb. Is like I can email one person at a time the exact same message. Like so let's say I have 100 people on my email list.
Mhm.
I can copy paste the same message for all 100 and hit send. But if I put them all into an email list, paste that same message and hit send, it auto sends it to all 100. Now I'm against the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But I can manually go send it one by one. So then it gets into, okay, if I have an AI agent that can manually do that, is that now still considered one to one? Right? Like there's this weird, like, why can't I just send it out to everybody over email? Versus, so like I personally, I think the rule's stupid. I understand the intent of it, and I'm not against the intent of it. I just think it's dumb. Um, but that's a whole other
But the
debate.
idea would be is to work within the rules, and
Yeah,
sometimes the best place to work is in the middle, and sometimes the best way to work is along the edge.
yeah,
So there should be like even if you had to send the emails one at a time, there should be a section of your database that's worth the time, right?
yeah,
And then you can use that for like that part of that before that 72 hours if that's such the rules or if that's
yeah.
consistent with the rules where you are.
And
But
some
then
boards
once
might be
you're in
shorter. We
that
have to check.
72-hour period, how many
Yeah.
of the agents around you are playing in that part of the field? Like with us, almost none of them. I don't see any coming soon signs except for ours. So doing that sign dance where we actually have to spend resources to
Yeah.
go out there and put signs in the neighborhood and then change them from coming soon to new listing. Well,
Yeah.
we find that if we want the neighbors to list with us, we're gonna give that a shot.
And you also have to look at your market, right? Like if you're in a market where the average days on market is 30, 40, 50 days, as an example, that 3 day coming soon period's almost irrelevant. The only time you might want to use it, besides like a little extra time, is like if there's another house down the street that might sell, you want to get yours up there so any potential buyers are like, oh, I'm gonna wait and see what that one is. There's some argument around that. But if it's gonna be like long days on market, it's not important. Now, in Taylor's scenario where it's like a week, right? Like that extra 3 days, think of just percentage of time. That's an extra pretty good. Like when in a market like Taylor's, I would treat that 72 hour, like that first hour where that 72 hours kicks off, like racehorses behind the gate waiting to go. Everything's ready. and then you hit it and you come out like you want to be organized and ready to go. That 72 mark hits and everything starts going out. And you have a very specific push, whereas most people, it's like, okay, put a sign in and you go put a post on social, but they're not like pushing. But that is your best window for getting business.
It's
That's like,
exclusive to you.
yeah, like
That listing
you,
is only info on that house is only through you. And
yeah,
look how diluted that is the day after it hits MLS.
yeah,
Now the access to information on this property is anybody with a website.
yeah. I would be going so hard in those
So
three
that
days.
coming
Like,
soon period
yeah,
is like really key in a hot market. But let's go into the other side of it. So finding where buyers are, where they're watching and afraid, they kind of like hover. In that case is where you can find people that will be open to the messages you bring. So in any market, determining who can be a winner, showing them how to win, and then helping them win is big business. So in these markets where buyers are like, "Oh man, I'm really worried about buying something. There's so many houses on the market. What if they keep going down? The news is negative." What they need to hear is like, oh, okay, how's that affecting the fact that you have two kids sharing a room?
yeah.
Right? Like it's always going to be scary, man. We haven't heard tariffs before there was COVID. Like this is the flavor of fear today. But why don't we just talk about what's going on? So you guys are upgrading, but you're afraid you're going to get take such a beating on your sale that you're not going to be able to upgrade. Why don't I talk to you about what the math would actually look like? Because the big question you're asking is if I choose to sell, will I have enough money to do whatever the hell I want to do next? That is the seller's algorithm. And as soon as they were like, man, you sound familiar with my problem, they'd like take me home.
Well, that's the like it's the show me you know me. Like this is what Phil Jones talks about all the time. Is you have to show them you know them. Right? Like and I like the line that he says about this. It's like besides the show them you know them, it's like care about the things the people you care about.
Hmm.
So for them, it's that like that's what they care about in this situation, and you have to get that. Like that show me you know me is such a big deal. Like I'm always trying to look at like how can I get someone to like say the words like he gets me.
Yeah.
Like
And in real
that's
estate, we know we're making project when they dump to us,
yeah,
or we know we're making progress when they dump to us. So if I'm talking to somebody about this and they're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. We have two kids that are sharing this bedroom, and my wife's been talking to me about this, but I keep watching the news and somebody
yeah,
says the market's going to crash and then I'm going to make some money on this. And as soon as they go through and start telling you their history and how they think and feel about things,
yeah,
after that, that's when they would say, you're my agent. We have a relationship now. So if you're wondering where that client emotional ownership starts, that's where the sizzle is.
yeah.
Whereas if you're just like, buy this house, if you meet them in an open house, that's detached from what they care about. They care about whether or not this is the right situation for them.
That's like it's so many interesting. Like we were talking about this earlier today, just on the language of like, and this is one I talk about all the time, where it's like you have to use their language repeated back to them in both your marketing and in your sales conversation. So if they're using one word, you use that word too, right? So like if it's a bully, like are they using the term bully offer as an example, or are they calling it something else in your area?
Yeah. So in with multiple offers, people use the term bidding war.
Yeah,
Realtors don't like that term. So in our marketing, we often say sold in multiple offers. Whereas if we
yeah,
were in tune with our clients, we would say sold in a bidding war.
yeah. Our clients won.
Yeah. Our clients won
Yeah,
the bidding war.
yep. They're
That
the
might
seller.
be, yeah, that might be it, but that is the language they use.
Yeah,
Also, geographically specific to like the type of house.
yeah.
So talk to me, let's go into this a little bit. Let's talk about where people detach themselves from their client in their marketing. So we were just
Yeah,
saying in that
that's a
in the
big one.
lingo, where else are we missing it?
So even on that side, let's use the bidding war example of like some agents because they were looking at, okay, I can't lever like I love leveraging listings, it's harder to leverage buyers. And in Toronto, especially, like there might be 70 offers on homes. Agents started like marketing, like our buyer won this house. Like, look at how great I'm is. How that's perceived by the public was I made my client overpay. And it had the opposite effect on for a lot of them. So it's like you have to understand, and it's also kind of that, or it's like the advertising of 100,000 over asking. Oh, so they know their neighbor just overpaid 100, even if that's not true. That's the perception that's going out there. So you have to look at like what is the perception of your message versus the intent. And if you're not making it really clear, like that's where it's like when we're talking about like for you, like let's say you sell a house 100,000 over your list price to make a clean number. I would not advertise it as sold 100,000 over asking. I would advertise it as the sellers got this much more than they expected. Because what the public hears when they see 100,000 is you specifically underpriced the listing to get that number you were always going to ask for. Even if that's not true, you could have priced it exactly where you thought it was going to sell for, and then it's sold still for 50, 100,000 over asking. Now
Okay,
the
I'm going to
marketing
overthink
is,
this for a second and then you reel
yeah,
me.
okay,
So if I say this much over expected, like the concern I have is that now that it's over, my clients' expectations match reality. So when they see whatever I put up, I find some a little bit of conflict there. And if I go deeper into my tunnel of I'm not sure where I'm going, is that their expectations were controlled by me in the market evaluations. So I think that
yeah,
this still might be thin from the perception of who I'm talking about.
yeah,
Now to switch, I would first determine who my audience is for whatever I'm going to say. So if I am just starting and I'm brand new, I put something on my Facebook that just makes me feel good. I sold 100,000. Well, you probably shouldn't say $100,000 because you probably violate some rules. So you might say I
most likely.
sold for 11% over asking. 111%, right? So I post something for me. So you should realize that you are posting for you. That's why nobody responds or
Yeah,
engages.
this is where we do case
Then,
studies.
if I wanted to make something that is designed for the neighbors, I should put it in a postcard in their mailbox because I cannot accurately push to them on like Facebook, like the housing survey or the housing rules and stuff will limit that. So, what vehicle do I want to use for marketing?
So using the postcard to the neighbors, how I would do that is essentially a your neighbors got had a bidding war and they sold their home for more than they thought possible.
So, you are
Click,
selling the story
yeah, scan here to read how they did it.
and then you move them to your
To a,
online environment so you can track them.
yep. And then that is going to now tell the story of the sale. And this is where like the easiest way to write this ChatGPT prompt that asks it to use Donald Miller's story brand framework, painting your client as the hero and you as the guide. But essentially, what you're trying to do is paint the before picture. So it's like, I don't know why I always use John and Sarah as my fake name, but John and Sarah are always my fake name for a couple. And so it's like John and Sarah, they found out she was pregnant and they realized their current home was not big enough for them. They needed a big home. They asked around some of their friends, and one name kept coming back, Taylor Hack. And so they picked up the phone and they gave me a call. I came over to their house and they showed me around the home. They kind of showed me all the ins and outs. We identified 10 things they needed to do to get the home ready. I brought my team in. We did this, and this to help them get ready. They did a phenomenal job helping get their home ready to maximize the sale price. Then our marketing machine turned on. So our team, with their help, did this, and this. That generated John and Sarah 37 showings on the house, 12 offers, and they actually were able to get $50,000 more than they thought they would get, which they're now able to put towards the best nursery in their new home. I was so happy to work with John and Sarah. If you'd like to get similar results on the sale of your home, reach out to me here. And it's
I
telling the
love it. So,
story.
what Andrew is telling you is that story is how people receive information. Because An infomercial is not the same as a movie with product placement. Nobody signs up, nobody pays to go to an infomercial, but both of them are selling products.
This is slap chop.
There you go. True, but don't get too
Yeah.
close. Um, and
Yeah.
so you could put it another way, like they talk about the Pixar model, which is very similar to what StoryBrand uses. And you could say,
Yeah.
once upon a time, you use John and Sarah. Once
John and
upon a
Sarah.
time, John and Sarah uh, lived in a house. And every day they would talk about needing to move to a larger house because they were having a baby. And each day they would talk about this and they would talk to some of their friends, but it wasn't clear as to what path would lead them to where they wanted to be. And there were a few things that were concerning given the current economy and how many houses were for sale. Until one day they called Andrew. And Andrew came to them and he was able to add context to their situation and show them how other people like them have moved into the houses that they wanted to be, but there was some things that were hard to see. Like, do you buy first or sell first? Do you need to do many improvements to your house? And being able to answer those questions is what gave them the confidence to move forward. Now, John and Sarah have been in their new house for about 6 months, and when they look back on this experience, the only thing that they regret is not doing it sooner.
Now, some of the best things to put into those stories are things that they couldn't do on their own, right? So, like, one of the little example would be like, we talked about like we were able to, we did a canvas of their neighborhood with our team where we knocked on every door in their preferred area. And we had these letters that went like, you talk about this extra work that goes into finding the home. And it could be something like, we looked up every agent that had sold a house in that neighborhood in the last 6 months, and we called them all to see if they had any people coming up because of that.
Okay, and
And
you don't
like,
even need to go big. You could say,
yeah,
you know what? Because they were looking at a specific neighborhood, I knew the 6 agents to call that hold most of the inventory.
yeah,
So what you're saying is that you had exclusive access or exclusive information, which you do, because
yeah,
you could look up who sold what, and you normally know enough about your market to access this.
yeah, yeah,
But show them the things that are behind the scenes, even when it's mundane.
yeah. Like we had a client, this was probably one of the more successful case studies we did. They sold a condo in Toronto, and it was for the highest price per square foot a condo had ever sold at the time. But I mean, it was in a rising market, so every sale almost set a new record, but they set the latest one.
And they were
And
probably one of the few to talk about it.
so we did a case study of how this agent set the record for highest price per square foot in this building, and because it had a very specific name. And then this was back especially when you could hyper target ads, and we only targeted that ad to the building. So it ran just the building. And the funny part was like most of the comments were like blaming the agent for the state of the real estate market. And
Hmm.
he didn't delete a single one. He responded to every single one to defend why those buyers still made a great choice despite setting the price per square foot record. And he got the penthouse listing because of that, because they saw it, they saw him defending it, and they realized that was a professionalism they wanted representing their sale. And this is one of my favorite things, like negative comments, unless they're like, go F yourself, you stupid, whatever, whatever, like that type of message, yeah, delete those. Anything that's not like extremely derogatory or inappropriate like that, go respond to it. You're not convincing them, you're convincing the people who read comments.
Remember who you're giving that advice to.
Yeah, get in there,
Because
make a
my
sale.
response to people is maybe not what you're looking for. Because I got a 1 star review on my Google, and I told them I hope they give them a 0 star button someday. This person was giving us a 1 star, hadn't actually worked with us, had offered on one of the properties that we had for sale.
Yeah,
And without like basically giving away anything, I just wanted to tell them, like, we understand why we're getting this 1 star from you. And
yeah,
for the people that choose other agents or are trying to disrupt our ability to get the most money for our sellers, I hope you see us as not on your team.
but our
Give us that
client
one
gave us
star.
a so that one I would actually just like essentially put up. I'd blur out their name, but I'd put up the 1 star review, explain it, and be like, now here's our client from that deal who gave us a 5 star review. This is the one we represented.
Hmm.
And just kind of give it that like, I hope we get all of our clients 5 star reviews. And then you're pointing out the one from the other. As long as it doesn't say like he's unethical, whatever, like that type of, because sometimes they'll say they just assume you were unethical because they didn't get it, even though they just didn't have a good enough bid. Um, but anything where it's like, I love the opportunity to showcase that. It's like that one that went viral, which you've definitely seen at
Oh,
some
that
point
would
of
be a
like,
good move. Is like if they said that you were being unethical and your clients chose something, you could go back and reply once the property sold and say, "Hey, this sold for 23% over list price. What was your bid? And
yeah,
why do you think they would have chose you instead of this?"
yep. And it's not, and the other side is it's not always the price that's the most important. Like one that like we've seen this with clients where it's like, all right, these ones were within 5,000 of each other. They took the lower one, but that had a better closing date.
It had a better closing date, or it was more clear.
Yep.
So what I mean
No
is that the
inspection
more
condition.
information, not even necessarily that. So let's say that
Yeah.
you have two identical offers that were within 1% of each other and they're well over list and the seller would take either one. What do you know about the clients themselves? Did they send a pre-approval letter? Did they send a love letter? Did they
Yeah.
send you more information that brings you certainty? What do you know about how much money they're giving you as a collateral to show how established they are as far as deposits go?
Do you
And then
send love letters with
also,
them all?
no, we actually send something different because we're trying to play, like we do send some love letters, depends on the clients, but we're also trying to play in a different arena. Where other agents don't play in multiple offers is look at me as an agent. So in my last 25 deals, in multiple offers, I have delivered 100% solds to pendings. We know the lender, somebody we work with all the time.
No.
These types of things are not necessarily questions that every agent knows how to ask. So I made an email template that shows them how to look at us as being like, you know what? I just don't know about enough about the other offer and about the other agent to choose them instead of this one.
No. So, yeah, like the present, and this is the other big one that I've noticed with in the Toronto area when we work with agents is I would, and I'd be really curious to see the percent of this is the overwhelming victory in it for the agents willing to present in person.
Uh, I don't believe that's a victory.
No, you don't want to present in person?
No.
So for multiple offers, I've seen way higher success rates when they're presenting in person
I would
and then
wonder how
staying at the
often
house.
they're able to do that.
So a
So
lot
if
of the time they
somebody
did.
called me and said, "Hey, I have a client who wants to present multiple offers in person to your client," I would be like, "You betcha, I'll take that to my client." And then I would be calling them back
Yeah.
promptly and saying, "Here's why we won't do that.
So they can still
You
present
are
to you, not
trying to
necessarily you and the
influence us."
client.
Right?
Yeah. So
But that's the thing that I'm going to get as resistance on the other side. I want to be easy to choose from other agents.
yeah.
I would way rather win with the agent by being like easy to deal with than try to go and essentially present in front of a client that's uncomfortable with an agent that hasn't done this before.
So sometimes those were presenting to the agent, not the agent and the seller.
Okay, well, I always
Yeah.
talk to the agent.
Yeah. But they basically the idea was they're there in person to establish the rapport and then they hang around. Because
I
what
see.
you want if you're hanging around is even if you're not like a top three offer, you're probably still going to be included if they send it back if you're still there.
They can't. So the multiple offer rules say that if you counter any one of them, you have to let the rest of them go.
So the way that they do it is they don't formally counter one
Yep,
and they say this is like essentially it's the your opportunity to improve the offer. Some of you are close, come back with your best.
totally.
And that's where
And then
being
them
there.
lingering around, they would kind of get more information and
Yeah.
that would work out. I could
Yeah.
see how that would work. And it
Yeah.
obviously makes me uncomfortable, so it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's where growth happens, the comfort
that's what
zone.
I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
about somebody on the other side coming to me, and I'd be like, I'd be shooting that down right now.
Oh yeah. Oh no, like as the on the other end side, like you want to control the whole process as much as possible.
Hmm.
On the other, but same come from their side. They're trying to control the process from their end. But that's what you
Hey, where
want.
you at? I'm bringing Starbucks.
Yeah, it's like when agents complain, it's like, oh, I hate when agents call and say, like, what's the lowest you'll take, or what's the lowest your clients will take, and they complain to the agent. Do you know how many times you can do that and they'll tell you? Like, I get why agents get annoyed when another agent calls and is like, what's the lowest your client will take? And they'll be like, it's the list price. And they'll be like, okay, but I've made that call and they've taken 100 grand off the price on the phone with one question. Like, it's almost irresponsible not to make that call sometimes.
Hmm.
Like your market's a little bit different because it's hot, but like in a market where prices are moving, it's been like,
I would
what's the
make
lowest
that
it'll take?
a different call though. So
Yeah.
like obviously that might be one of the questions, but if that's your lead question, you deserve what's
Yeah.
coming to you. You know?
They drop,
So
man. Like they'll
I would
give it to
understand they
you.
drop, but I also
Yeah.
think that with some nuance, you could
Yeah.
actually get more than that.
Yeah.
So giving them a call and being like, "Hey, you know what? I got some clients looking at this place and I kind of see what you guys see in it. What we're worried about is the rest of the market doesn't see that.
Yeah.
So right now, is there something that we could talk about that would help us understand like why you guys see it at the value you see it at? Because I want the agent to show me that it's not them. Like it's very difficult to negotiate with an uninformed or ignorant agent and seller when they're both not informed. But if you
Yeah.
have guild questions, you actually reveal that it's only the seller that's uninformed and the agent has been trying to work it out.
Oh, when they respond with, oh, it's the seller's price.
Yeah,
I
so
love
in that
that.
case, though, that gives me more information because now
Yeah.
I know that if I'm able to bring a good argument and back up what that other agent has already been presenting to their client, it's more likely that together we can make that seller informed in a place where they wouldn't change their list price. So I make a different call, and I avoid that question specifically because I think it's a trigger question. I really
Yeah.
like the side door, and
Fair.
that's where I take it.
So I just would go right in with it for the amount of times it was very successful for me. With the odd time, one of my favorite ones like that, I did make that call.
Hmm.
And as she's hanging up, I just hear, what a fucking asshole.
Yeah, so I wonder if
Yeah.
you would lower the percentage likelihood of that by changing
It's
the question
possible.
and still not lose any positive answers.
Yeah. No, it was amazing what people would say when you ask. That's why I'm always like, you gotta, even if you find a different way to ask it,
Well, that's
you
the same
gotta,
thing. Like the
yeah,
most intelligent feedback question I think that you could have from your listings is if you just showed my place to be like, "Hey, Andrew, at what price is your client a buyer?"
yeah.
Right? Like, let's just cut through it. But I don't think that many people are good with that level of directness.
Well, that's where it's a huge advantage to you, right? Is like if you're like if you, I'm sure you've read it too, like never split the difference.
Hmm.
Is like so much of that is just being comfortable with uncomfortableness.
But they also use the side door all the time,
Yeah,
right? Like the way that Chris moves in asking when somebody gives him a counter and then he accepts the counter and then asks them calm questions, summarizes in a way that they'd accept, which is just what you were talking about. Like present it back to them so that they can
yeah,
understand that you understand. As soon as
yeah,
you've done that, they feel heard. And then after that, to give excuses that don't diminish the relationship. Oh, I wouldn't be able to do that. And then use time when you have it to essentially work on that other party.
yeah,
Hey, I wouldn't be able to do that. You know, I could understand, but if your situation changes, let me know. And then keep hanging around.
yeah.
And it will slowly reveal the lowest price that they will pay through like attrition. If you're in a situation where you do have time, and especially when the market pressure is working towards you.
You know, in terms of the uncomfortableness in it, to this day, my favorite move is shutting up and making them talk. You know, like they ask a question and
What's
then you
your
just,
setup to that?
so it depends on the scenario. But basically, like the big one that a lot of people make the mistake is when it comes to like the call to action, where it's like, are you ready to go forward? If people don't answer within 3 seconds, most people then start like negotiating against themselves. But if you
So in
hold,
that situation, it plays against it. But if you're going to
yeah,
play this card where you use silence to gather information or to make them like give more than they should,
yeah,
I have like a setup for it, and I might be asking you the wrong question. So if you're like, yeah, I don't understand, then I'll show you mine.
yeah. Um, in terms of that side, so like, because it's different with my side, right? I'm not often in a back and forth negotiation the same way. Our price is just the price.
Okay, I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
So
let's hear it.
what I try to do in every conversation is I show up with tone. So the first thing I do is, and I have an objective. My objective at the end of each conversation is how will you feel about me at the end of us talking?
Yeah,
So I stay within those lines. And then I would start it and I would get it coming to a boil. So I'm going to do short exchanges with you until it's kind of like boiling, like moving along, because then I can slide the conversation in different ways. And once I get this cadence that creates a pattern with you, I stop the pattern and leave a blank and you fall into it.
yeah,
So I'm going to use different techniques. I'm going to use one technique called go too deep. And I'm going to have some small targets like side missions. And I'm going to find like family, occupation, recreation, and dreams.
yeah,
If I'm in an open house, the side door I'm going to use is the context of the house. So when somebody comes in, I'm going to do a strong greeting and I'm going to try to become a real person instead of the realtor as early as I can. So I'd be like, hey, Andrew, 30th house today? My name's Taylor.
yeah,
And then you might be like, no, not 30th house. This is my first house. And be like, oh, okay. Did you come from far? And now I'm going too deep. So I'm going to ask two questions off of each answer you give me
yeah,
that makes you carry the conversation. All I'm doing is reacting. And that's going to bring the conversation to a boil. And then once it's boiling, I'm going to slide around and use the house as frame. And I'm going to be like, hey, there's 3 bedrooms upstairs. Is that enough for everybody? And then you're going to tell me about your wife and
yeah,
kids. Hey, from here, what do you think it'd take? How much time do you think it'd take to get to work? Now you're going to tell me about what you do for work.
yeah,
Uh, and then I can also move into recreation. So if it was a weekend and you lived here, what would we be doing? Would we have pretty far to go with dance and gymnastics and whatever else your kids do? And then if you want to get the dreams, all you got to do is slingshot from the past to the future. So how does a place like this fit into your long-term plan?
yeah,
So you can get all of these, but once you're sliding around and somebody's talking to you, it's going to be like back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And then you talk, and I might say that last move. So how does a property like this fit into your long-term plan? And then you answer, and when you stop talking, I take 2 full breaths before I talk again. So you might be like, well, I think I might live here, but eventually I'd like to retire to the United States. And then I'd just be like, and by the time I draw the second one, well, my wife doesn't really want to go to the United States. She's always talking about what they're saying down there. So I
yeah.
don't think we're going to actually move. And really, we got grandma close by in the neighborhood over, and then they just start giving.
Oh, yeah. Anytime you give that impression of I'm waiting for more, they almost always give it.
Hmm.
I love that move. Like it's such a good little, yeah.
Yep,
And
I
then
I
they
find that
break it.
it's a really quick way to snap open the pickle jar.
Yeah,
Like if you look at the things that people struggle with in real estate, it's getting to the part of the conversation that matters. And the people that are gifted at this, the way that they just crack those nuts open, it's amazing. And it can be direct. Like we were talking about some direct conversation. And when you do that, you have to train for the reaction. It's
yeah,
like you're playing the bounce. Or you can control the reaction the way I do with prevention, but then build to like more of like a chess move of like 3 moves in, now it's locked.
yeah. And what I find in this, if you can deliver, so going back to comedy when you're talking to people, is like a great joke is a setup they're expecting followed by a punchline they didn't expect. Is like if you can
Mm.
add in something they don't expect you to say. So like even when you went in the beginning and you're saying like, "Oh, is this the 30th house?" 30th house, like, no, it's the first. Be like, so what you're saying is this is the best house you've seen today.
Hmm.
Or like I'm glad to be show you the best house you're gonna see or the best house you've seen all day. Like I did this one of the first, in those moments in your life where you're like, maybe I could do something related to this. It was like I was in university and I never even thought about sales ever. It was just not on my radar of something I'd be good at. And randomly got asked to do a hot dog fundraiser thing. Just like cook the hot dogs, sell the hot dogs. Fundraiser, sorry, you just stand there and do hot dogs. And I was like, no one's buying. Let me see if I can convince people to come by. And the line that got us the most sales that day was me just calling out someone, making them uncomfortable. And if I didn't know their name, I'd be like, with the beard. I guarantee this will be the best hot dog you have in the next 5 minutes. You want to try the best hot dog in a 20 foot radius?
Hmm.
This is it. And that like they weren't expecting the like bluntness of like me saying these are not great hot dogs, but it's the best one right here, right now.
I love
And
it.
the amount of people who would like stop, look, and they just gotta get a little smile, and then they'd walk back. It worked great. It was like that was one of those first times where it's like something I could do with this skill set.
Totally. And I like the
Yeah,
hook, right?
yeah.
Like my
Uh,
bet is that this is the best hot dog you're gonna see your whole grocery trip.
yeah. And this 20 foot radius, by far the best. Yeah, I always find like where are those opportunities to set them up? Like I do look for opportunities. I do this looking at them on stage shows. Like where can I set someone up with like something they're used to hearing and then take it in a completely different direction.
Okay, I used to do this as like a 20-year-old in a car dealership. And you'd walk in
Yeah,
there and I'd be like, "Hey, are you looking for Taylor?" And they'd be like, "No, I'm here to buy a car." "Oh, hi, I'm Taylor."
yeah,
And it was just like this stupid thing that would get like
yeah,
that soft chuckle. And then they'd be like, "Okay, Taylor, let's go."
yeah. Breaks the ice. But no, that like
Yeah.
little rapport build, go like if you can get because the other thing it does, it just releases a little tension from the air because they always have their guard up coming in because it's like talk, like to them like they're going to an open house like I'm going to talk to us, and so many people have this belief that someone's in sales, they can talk them into things that maybe they don't want. Like
Oh,
I
magic.
remembered this, yeah, like I had a client out one time and it was like this guy, like I'd met him, he'd known me for a while, and he made a comment about something, and I just said, "Oh, well, you could get that." He's like, "Well, sure, you could talk anyone into anything. You're in sales." And I was like, "You have a very high opinion of every sales rep you've ever met, because that is not true for most of them."
Yeah. How about they spend every day, all day trying to do this
Yeah,
and it sometimes works?
yeah, and but his belief was
And
because I was
most
in
likely they
sales.
didn't convince anybody to
Yeah,
do anything. They just were
yeah.
in the place where it happened.
But that's the mentality. Like when people interact with you, that's why their guard's up, is they're trying to protect themselves from being talked into something they don't want.
And they have to have some level of resistance. Otherwise, the
Yeah.
mall kiosks would make them bankrupt,
Yeah.
you
So
know?
that resistance isn't about you. It's just about them trying
No,
to
it's
protect. So it's like
natural.
finding ways. So like I noticed back when I used to film over a pint, right? Is most people, especially like if I had association board people on, because like they have PR staff, they're worried about how it's going to make them look. There's always that little bit of like guardedness around a
Mm,
show. So this is actually what made Hot Ones amazing to me. Is like
mm,
one, the interviewer's amazing. Like he's just one of the best interviewers out there. But two is if you pay attention over the show, you'll notice this. Have you ever watched Hot Ones?
mhm,
So just for people to watch, if you don't know what it is, it's that show where they eat hot wings. Each question's paired with a hot wing, gets progressively hotter as it goes. So the beginning, they're giving their regular like media trained answers. And then depending on someone's heat tolerance, somewhere between wings 3 and 8, it tips into pain. But because they're so focused on the heat, their guard comes down from the media training because they can't concentrate on both. Then they start asking or they start responding like a real person. So I was seeing that and thinking, okay, like I want to have that same reaction on my shows of like, how can I get someone to let their guard down just to have a real conversation? And
mhm.
we found a few tricks. One was it was alcohol, so get long enough into an episode and their guard will just come down. So like that's why sometimes we'd film 2 or 3 hour long episodes because you get a couple of years in. That one worked well. The other one, which I also used to do, is I'd be talking to them like this, and they'd be like, "Shit, forgot my question." Oh, I always do this. I keep like I have so much respect for someone like Oprah who could like conduct these killer interviews and always knows the next question, even though we know there's a ton of editing. I'd be like, but I really can't remember my next question. And then as I'm doing that, we just kind of start chatting and then we
Hmm.
go. And then sometimes it'll be like 40 minutes later, they're like, oh, we should really get back to the show. I'm like, we've been filming for 40 minutes. But it's like the
Yeah.
trust there with me is that like I'm not that wouldn't work with like news is we're not here to embarrass anyone. It's like if there's anything said, rightly we take it out. The other one that I noticed that did it is they're all used to doing interviews where they're sitting there and they're like but that's why we cracked it on air at the beginning in a can. That noise of shh, you could feel people kind of relax at the beginning of the episode. And that
Yeah,
like
I like the
moment.
concept.
Yeah,
And the way that you soften people up. And I always like as somebody who's interviewed when I've done other podcasts, when I did leadership line of sight
yeah,
and some other things, I always found that it was my job to bring the best out of the other person on
yeah,
screen with me. So as an interviewer, I had to have done enough research that I could throw strikes to them, right?
yeah.
And then once in a while throw a curveball that they still hit, but that makes it interesting.
So
And with the hot ones, once they started going with their guard down, they were very planned and crafted questions.
yeah. He very much had that played out. But like even in the industry, right? Like I've found this is like there are people who they've just said it so many times. It's like they get a little robotic with how
Yeah,
they
just
respond it.
canned. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I have said this same thing a million times on a million. It's like, okay, how can we get them out of that like track? I need to hit them to a different one. That's
Mhm.
where like I forgot my next question. Because as soon as I say that, they're not used to hearing that.
Oh, yeah, there's some techniques for
Right.
this too. Like you
Yeah.
could ask somebody for their second favorite dinner,
Yeah.
right? So if you want to get around canned answers, you have to get around canned questions. And
Yeah.
it's a big skill to develop in sales because a lot of people are going to tell you stuff that they didn't think about. That's when they say things like, I'm just browsing.
Yeah.
Or if you ask the wrong question, you actually lead in to canned responses. And this is just a rookie mistake. Like, oh yeah, do you have a realtor? A lot of the time, the way they field that question is, I know a realtor. Like, yeah, we used
Yeah.
Brenda last time, like 7 years ago. I haven't talked to her. Don't know if she's still in the business, but since you asked, yes, I have Brenda as a realtor.
Yeah.
And now that I have actually said it, I just made
You
a
just gave
verbal
Brenda a deal.
commitment to Brenda,
Yeah.
right? And you get the assist. Way to go.
Yeah. Maybe you should get a 25% referral fee on that one. This is the
Oh, no,
Dean
no, no.
Jackson thing that he talks about
Yeah.
is when someone comes into a store, if you say, "Can I help you?" you will get way less response in sales than saying, "What brings you in here today?" Because
Open-ended question versus closed-ended question.
someone saying, "Can I help you?" your automatic guarded response is, "No, thanks, I'm just looking." Even if you needed help.
Yeah, it's just like,
Like
how are you?
back
Fine.
when I got first got into sales, I'm sure I've told this story at some point. I don't know if I've told it on the show. It's like it took me 6 months to get my first sale. Did a bunch of leases, but like I had a mortgage to pay. So and I started in July. So like that December, I had to get a job at a toy store. And I was like, well, besides the fact that I can pay my mortgage and real estate's slow right now, I should at least like try things to improve my sales skills because I'm talking to people all day. And I started doing the like, what brings you in here today? And how fast that worked was one of those like light bulb moments of like, sometimes it's just the right questions. Like, then I started setting goals of like, all right, today I'm going to pick one product and sell it out. Like, see if I can just sell out one product. And I just like it was so much fun. I mean, glad I just wasn't a retail worker by the end of it. But it was a really fun thing to practice and try. But also you will lose a listing presentation if you do a listing presentation the next morning they turn around in the store to you in a little red apron. Not a closing technique.
Burns. It
Yeah,
burns.
that one hurt.
Yeah.
But you could see the
Oh,
look on her
you
face.
sell Lego
Literally,
houses.
I was at her kitchen table at
We
like
were
8 p.m.
confused.
And then 10:30, she runs into me in the store with my little red
Harsh
apron on.
turns. And you're
Yeah.
walking on cloud nine. You're like, I'm a
But I was doing if I get that listing, I actually could probably quit this job.
oh yeah, harsh. That's a
Oh,
rough
yeah.
one.
Good
And
times.
that's a good way to close here as we meet
Yeah.
the top of the hour. So thank you for sharing that with us and also talking to me a little bit about kind of the ups and downs of working in buyers markets and sellers markets, trying to play the angles and see where you can get ahead. We have more episodes coming in the weeks to come where it is Andrew and I, but we'll probably be having some special guests. I know Jess is looking forward to coming back.
Yep.
Um, and there's definitely been some people around me that have been like, hey,
Get me on.
because they're starting to see the show. So we're
Yeah.
excited for that. As always, we're going to stick around for a few minutes, just as long as it pops and bubbles. So you got questions, you want to interact with us off the air, where I swear way more, then you can stick around. And the rest of you guys, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you guys. And if you're watching the recording, come live next time so you can stay around for this part where I'm about to turn off the recording and we're going to keep going. So come live next
Peace.
time.